Folks, welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. A warning to ICE agents out there, and maybe a request to my Republican friends in Congress. ICE agents are about to be hung out to dry, and I fear Republicans working with Democrats on this new DHS bill over the next 2 weeks that they're going to reformulate. They may be setting up ICE agents for criminal prosecutions. Now, what do I mean by this? Republicans may do it unknowingly. Democrats know full well what the setup job is here. You hear both Republicans and Democrats talking about these, quote, roving patrols. And we're going to rein in roving patrols of ICE agents. Since when does Congress get involved in how law enforcement does its job? Since when does law enforcement get into tactics and policies of individual agencies and departments? It shouldn't. Congress needs to stay out of this. And if Congress starts legislating how ICE can patrol, now it's all going to be in the decision maker of who decides what a violation is. This is where the setup job comes in. The ICE agents go outside the lines or in the view of some radical judge outside the lines of these patrol laws. Those ICE agents could be criminally charged. Congress, stay out of legislating how ICE does its job. I may not like the masks, but you can't legislate whether or not they wear masks or not. You may not like the way they patrol, but you can't legislate how they patrol. All of these things need to be left alone. I'm going to prove to you that the Democrats know exactly what they're doing here and why ICE agents need to be very concerned. And my, again, Republican friends in Congress push back on this. And I worry, I hear Speaker Johnson talking all about this, that he may be willing to negotiate with Democrats on all of this. That is super, super bad news. All right, before we get into all of that, folks, let me tell you about my friends over at Energized Health. EnergizedHealth.com is where I'd love you to go. This is about taking back your life. It's about getting back in shape, mental clarity, joint pain goes away. But best of all, the fat. Visceral fat around your organs, the body fat around your waist, that inner tube starts to melt away when you get hydrated at a cellular level. And that's the science behind Energized Health. I want you to go there, watch a masterclass, and then book yourself a call. It's totally free, very informative. Whether you sign up with them or not, you will leave better prepared to take your life back after booking this call. EnergizedHealth.com. That's EnergizedHealth.com. Make sure you tell them that I sent you. And I promise you, you're not going to regret it. It's intercellular hydration, and it changed my life. I lost 15 pounds in 2 weeks on the program. And it's an 88-day protocol. In 2 weeks, I lost 15 pounds. All natural, too, by the way. All right, with that, let's get the show started.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right, folks, welcome back. So I want to talk about everything going on with these negotiations over the DHS funding bill that now has a 2-week reprieve. Do you think that Democrats and Republicans are going to agree on a DHS funding bill that will be good enough for me, be good enough for you, be good enough for the ICE agents, be good enough for President Trump? Here's where I'm going to shock you. Normally, I'd say no. But I am 100% completely scared to death that Republicans are going to roll over on some of the demands of these leftist radicals that hate law enforcement, hate the idea of immigration enforcement, hate the idea of deportation. And they hate this idea not because they love the illegal aliens. They hate this idea because it puts a dent in their plans to hijack America through illegal immigration and then, of course, illegal voters. We know about that. We're going to talk about the SAVE Act in a little bit. But if you want proof of this, first off, I want you to listen to Senator Warner, a Democrat. I want to play a Democrat and then the Speaker of the House. Listen.
And one of the things that I think we need to make sure that is included in any kind of ICE reform is we don't want these roving patrols of ICE agents suddenly showing up at polling stations during primaries or general elections. We may have a major vote in Virginia about redistricting. That's got to be a reform as well. The level of intimidation that the feds could bring on voters all across the country, if it doesn't worry you, it should.
It doesn't worry me at all. Now, here's the little trick of this. The roving patrols. This is going to be a mantra you hear now over the next 2 weeks. We don't want ICE out there roving around. What, being proactive? It's exactly what we want law enforcement to be. There's not a police department in America that is proactive today. What police departments in America do today is they get a 911 call and they respond. They may get a 911 call. There's a group of kids on the corner dealing drugs. They respond. This is not proactive. Most police departments in America do not have a patrol officer that isn't responding but looking for crime. That's proactive. What ICE was doing with the, quote, roving patrols and looking for illegals was proactive, and it worked. You may not like it. You may think it's too harsh, but it's well within the bounds of the law because they have a duty to enforce immigration law. So they're going to use this roving patrols. Now, Warner gives it away because he says, we don't want these roving patrols showing up at voting locations. Now, wait a second. If you're legal to vote, what do you care whether a roving patrol shows up at a voting location? Who cares? People are so upset, like, I don't want to have to travel throughout America and be asked for my identification everywhere I go. But if there's some kind of a crackdown someplace and I've got to be asked for my identification, I don't mind showing it. I got nothing to hide. Now, you have some issues where you don't want to be showing papers. But if you have reasonable suspicion to believe someone is here illegally, well, then I think you have a right to ask for their identification. What would reasonable suspicion be? Reasonable suspicion be speaks no English. That doesn't just mean that you're here illegally. You're in an unregistered car that comes back as stolen, maybe. You pull it over. Now you have a right to ask the ID. You find out they're illegal. Bing, bang, boom, you're good to go. All of these things are used to ask people ID. You don't just go around asking for random people's identification. I don't like that. I don't support that. So now you have these roving patrols that I could care less if they go to a voting location, by the way. The only reason you care if they're going to a voting location is if you know there's going to be illegal aliens there and you don't want them scaring the illegals away from voting who shouldn't be voting in the first place. Now, we got to rein in these roving patrols. First, it was body cameras. Now, this took me a little while. And I told you, I work with law enforcement often. I've trained with law enforcement. They were so worried about the body cameras when they first broke onto the scene. I think there's not a cop in America today that will tell you they don't want a body camera. Unless they're a crooked cop, and there's not very many of those around. The body camera protects the officer far more than it protects the suspect. There are so many complaints of bad behavior of an officer, and that body camera protects him from those ridiculous complaints. So I'm all for putting body cameras on every ICE agent out in the field, doing patrols, doing roving patrols, engaging with suspects. No problem. But legislating how they do their job, I am not for it. And here I hear Speaker Johnston yesterday say something like this.
Wanting to make sure that immigration enforcement is done safely and smartly and efficiently, and that's what you're going to get. It's going to be balanced. It's going to be a balanced approach. Of the demands that were made, the requests that were made, many of those are already being implemented. You notice that that they're going to have the body cameras. We put $20 million additional dollars in this legislation that they're holding up right now to pay for more body cameras. But Secretary Noem came out yesterday, as you saw, and announced that this will be the new policy. These are good things. The roving patrols will be modified. There are a lot of things that I think were thoughtful suggestions that would have already been implemented by Mr. Homan and others who are in charge of all this.
Wait, the roving patrols will be modified? What does Congress have any role in doing that? Now, you can ask Tom Homan and Kristi Noem and the head of ICE to modify how they. You can ask them. You can have the president say, hey, I want them to do this, but you legislate this. Now you've made a law, and if an ICE agent violates your law, they will be hung out to dry when the next administration comes into power. Do you not see this, Speaker Johnson? Oh, sounds good, roving patrols. You know, these Republicans claim to understand law enforcement. I don't think they do either. I don't think they understand the use of force continuum. I don't think they understand threat level assessments. I don't think they understand what is proper tactics, what isn't, to keep people safe. They just say, oh, we support law enforcement, and it sounds like common sense. We'll get these roving patrols under control. No. Just as I have been very clear, this may make some of you angry. I don't like the masks. I don't. You're a public servant. You take on the job to go enforce law enforcement. I have a right to know who you are. Sadly, radical leftists. I know they're doxing them. I know they're showing up at the homes. And there should be a law passed to make that illegal if there isn't one already. But do you not think that I get threats? I'm here every day blasting radicals. When I was at the NRA, it was really bad. You think I'm going to cover my face? I'm going to be afraid to come on camera and blast? My son was threatened to be killed at his grammar school by a deranged individual. The FBI had to get involved. Random threat. Because people know who I am. It's part of the business, man. As I say to those who want to threaten me, I leave the light on and the door's unlocked. You're a law enforcement officer. You ought to have the same attitude. I'm sorry that you don't want to show your face, but it's just, I don't know. I think it's bad form. And quite frankly, I think what happens in law enforcement is things become cool. So now they got this thing, oh, well, it's cool to wear the mask. It's cool to wear your 9mm on your thigh. You're going to make us look like a tactical guy. Wear it on your thigh. It looks real cool. To me, it's ridiculous. I understand it doesn't get quite in the way of your gear on your body, but these are all little trends in law enforcement that they like to look cool, and I think it's not needed. But here's what I am going to say. Congress has no business legislating whether officers can wear a mask or not. None. Because what if you are undercover? Now I understand why you wear a mask. If you work for the DEA and you're going deep undercover and you're involved in arrest, I understand why you're wearing a mask. But if you're out every day on the streets and you're running random patrols, you're not undercover. I don't think you should wear a mask, but I don't think it should be legislated. I think that should be up to the individual agencies. They can make their own policies on this. But the moment you legislate it, and the moment one officer or agent wears a mask because he's going undercover tomorrow, and they say that's not appropriate, and then what are they going to do? Arrest him? Maybe, if it's a Democrat administration. So no legislation of policies inside these federal law enforcement agencies. Yet that's exactly what Speaker Johnson appears to want. They hate ICE agents. They would like nothing more than to hang them all because they're upending the apple cart of the stolen election scheme. That's what this is about. Here's Jerry Nadler
Really, the major problem in this country today is the fascism in our streets. The attacks on American citizens by masked hoodlums. If you were attacked by a masked person, you might think you were being kidnapped. You'd be justified in shooting the person.
Excuse me? If you were attacked by a masked person, you'd be justified in shooting them. So what did Jerry Nadler do? He just said, you know what, folks? Go out there and shoot ICE agents. Have at it. Shooting gallery. Open season. They're wearing a mask. You don't know who they are. He just gave approval from a sitting member of Congress to go kill ICE agents. You don't think somebody who does that will play that soundbite? Well, a sitting member of Congress said that a reasonable person would suspect that they're there to do me great harm. I had to shoot them. You know when it's an ICE agent and when it's not. I use the example. When I was shopping, there was a fight on the sidewalk between two plainclothes individuals. One person looked like a suspect. One person looked like a security guard or undercover cop. And you know, go figure. I did a pretty good job of telling which one was which. And I ran across the street and I tackled the guy who was beating up the undercover security guard for the store, beating him up. And I tackled him. And the security guard got up and the two of us struggled for about 2 minutes to get this guy under control and in handcuffs. And they took him away. Now, how did I know the good guy and the bad guy? It's pretty easy to tell out there. It's called, it's not even intuition. You know who the good guy is and who the bad guy is. It's just a fact. All right. Folks, let me tell you about my friends over at Patriot Mobile. PatriotMobile.com/Grant, 972-PATRIOT. Tell them I sent you. Use the promo code GRANT for a free month service. America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. Patriot Mobile is doing what only Patriot Mobile does best, and that is taking the fight to the left. A portion of your proceeds that you pay your cell phone bill go to pushing conservative causes, fighting for conservative candidates, supporting programs like this. It's amazing what Patriot Mobile is doing, as opposed to what the other three cell phone companies are doing, funding the woke ideology of the left. So if you don't want to be any part of that, get with Patriot Mobile. You choose what network you want to be on. They have access to the big three networks. You choose what network you want to be on. Keep your phone, upgrade your phone, get a new phone, all the things a cell phone company does. And you have peace of mind knowing that U.S.-based customer service, that leadership is in your corner, and that it's a great company. In fact, the official mobile service provider for Stinchfield's Army. PatriotMobile.com/Grant. Use that promo code GRANT for a free month service. I promise you, you won't regret it. All right. So we know that all of this comes back to a scheme. The immigration crisis in America was created by the Democrats because they wanted to flood America with illegal voters, ultimately to either get them to vote illegally or give them amnesty so they could ultimately sign up and vote. Get them to sign up when they have their driver's licenses in states like California and beyond. And they start winning elections. That's the scheme. So Republicans want to push back on this. President Trump basically has come up with the SAVE Act. The Save America Act. Two different bills I think will be combined into one. One is to make sure you're an American citizen before you can vote in a federal election. Two is to make sure you show ID when you vote. Now, it is true that states are tasked with running elections. But it is not out of the realm of law for the federal government to ensure and mandate that you're an American citizen. That's constitutional. It's sad we have to mandate that, but that's not out of the realm of possibility. Now, voter ID will come down to the states. Here's how the federal government can get involved, in my opinion. You mandate the states do it, and if they don't do it, that's on them. but they don't get certain funding for certain things. You hold back the cash. You have a choice. You either do what daddy says to do or you don't get your allowance. It really is that simple. So I want these two bills passed because nothing else in America matters without these bills being passed. So what do, the Democrats? They rush out there and they start screaming racism. Now, I'm going to give you a little insight into what America thinks and what Democrat leaders think and why there's a disconnect, even between everyday Democrats and Democrat leaders. See, because Democrat leaders are sly. They're on to the scheme. This is Chuck Schumer.
We've got to get this done, and we've got to get it done very quickly. The SAVE Act is an abomination. It's Jim Crow 2.0 across the country. We are going to do everything we can to stop it.
You're relating the SAVE Act, proving you're an American citizen to vote, to Jim Crow 2.0. First off, if you had relatives that were under the thumb of Jim Crow laws, well, then you should be absolutely outraged by his comments. We're not separating blacks, whites, Hispanics, or Asians. We're just saying you got to be an American citizen. It's pretty easy to prove that. You got a birth certificate and a driver's license. You bring the two of those things in. One, so the driver's license matches your birth certificate. A birth certificate doesn't have a picture on it, and anybody can bring that in. But you match it. Or a passport. Or a global entry card. Plenty of ways to prove your citizenship. But Democrats want to tell you that black folks don't have an ability to prove they're American. It is so offensive, by the way. And here's what I would task you. Go to your local street corner in your city, and every black person that walks by, you just ask them, can you prove you're an American citizen? One, they're going to be so offended that you're asking them that. And two, if they answer you, they're going to all say yes. But Democrats are saying this is racist to invoke the ire of their minority base and ultimately to try to push this from not getting passed because what they really want is to cheat. The only reason you don't want voter ID and prove you're an American citizen is if you want to cheat. That's the only reason. Now, everyday Democrats, they're all like pie in the sky, unicorns and rainbows. The unicorns are even pooping Skittles. Like they don't think they can cheat. Our leaders wouldn't cheat. But people like Chuck Schumer know the cheating is right there. So the everyday Democrat is actually for voter ID. I mean, you can listen to Harry Enton over at CNN. He's constantly the bearer of bad news for leftists.
Take a look here. Favorite photo ID to vote. 85% of white people favor it. 82% of Latino. 76% of black Americans favor it. So the bottom line is this. Voter ID is not controversial in this country. A photo ID to vote is not controversial in this country. It is not controversial by party, and it is not controversial by race.
Look at this. Just take a look at the numbers. Favor a photo ID to vote. 85% of white people, 82% of Latino people, and 76% of black people. That's an overwhelming majority. Now, you should probably shock Latino, 82%. Why would that be? Do you know what the number one identification is in Mexico? It's not their driver's license. It's their voter ID card. That's what Mexicans use to identify themselves in Mexico, a voter ID card. I'm telling you, you can't make this up. So the everyday Democrat doesn't understand that their party is cheating. That's the reality. The leaders know. This is why it's only Democrat leadership that says we can't have voter ID, you can't prove you're an American citizen, and all of this craziness. It's only leadership. Now, here's President Trump. He spells it out.
Who would not want voter ID? Only somebody that wants to cheat. Think of it. We don't have voter ID. And the Democrats don't want it. And the reason they don't want is because they want to cheat. Because there's no reason in the world, and I love that debate. Why don't you want voter ID? And you watch them say, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, think from a common sense perspective. Just take all politics out. Say you were a Martian and you came down here and you said, hey, we're going to show up to vote in an election. And you got to show an ID before you think the Martian would be like, absolutely not, I'm not showing an ID. No, everyone would expect to show an ID. I mean, I'm not going to, I will use the example, but you've heard it a million times, is I show an ID to get on a plane. I show an ID to go into a federal building. I show an ID sometimes when I have to take cash out at the bank. I show an ID all over the place. I've got to show an ID. But somehow, when you have to vote, you don't need to show an ID. I mean, honestly, it doesn't make any sense. Now, here's what's troubling. I told you earlier how Republicans are going to set ICE agents up for criminal prosecution. Now I'm concerned this SAVE Act, which is so important, Republicans are going to scuttle it. You mark my words on this. And I don't know why, other than that the uniparty is very real. And John Thune is a member of it. You know, he seems like a nice enough guy. But I do believe he is a uniparty guy. And I think his comments here about why we just are going to have some real problems getting the SAVE Act through. See, the thought right now is that they'll use the speaking filibuster to get this voted on. That forget the 60 vote rule. It's an idea that you have to speak on it. And if Democrats don't want to, they're going to have to keep speaking on it. And it takes up time on the floor. But it would also force the Democrats to explain why they're against it. And there's no good reason to be against it. So anyway, here's John Thune.
Let's listen here.
Filibuster to try to outlast the Democratic minority under current rules. Do you have any expectation that you can succeed with that, given the enormous difficulty of doing that? In fact, the previous majority has not been able to.
Right. Well, you know, I guess, and I would just remind people that the coin in the realm in the Senate is floor time. There's a finite amount of it. And we have a lot of things we have to do. There's a housing bill that's awaiting action, hopefully a market structure bill, possibly permitting reform, farm bill, highway bill. You can go right down the list. Russia sanctions. There are a whole bunch of things that could be teed up for action on the floor of the Senate. And so you have to make some judgments, and the conference will have a conversation about that. I've committed to that we will talk about that idea and determine whether or not what the conference's views are about it and how they want to proceed. As I said, we will vote on the SAVE Act, but exercising or triggering a talking filibuster has ramifications, implications that I think everybody needs to be aware of. So we will have those discussions, but that's obviously ties the floor up for an indefinite amount of time with not only unlimited debate, but also unlimited amendments.
All right.
So think about this. Does anything else matter if we don't have a free and fair election? Does any other business on the floor of the United States matter if the elections aren't going to be fair moving forward? That we don't have another President Trump on the ballot to make it too big to rig because he gets so many people to show up to vote. Now, if nothing else matters, and this has to be your number one priority, this is the only way we secure America. Because we've proven that the Democrats want to cheat. You just look at California and the stranglehold they have on elections in that state because of the wacky, enabling, cheating, lack of laws, or even laws they have on the books, like mailing a ballot to every single voter, whether they request one or not. So, Speaker Thune, you're so worried about the other business. The other business doesn't matter without this. You're making excuses now as we don't want to spend the time on it, when I can't imagine what else you'd want to spend more time on. This is the most important issue we face as Americans. This is the line in the sand. And John Thune is backtracking. And those in the United States or Senate are backtracking. I'm told we have 50 Republican senators who would vote for this. So, Thune, what are you doing, man? And this is just more reason to me to throw out the 60-vote filibuster. Get rid of it. We certainly know the Democrats will. That's a fact. So here's what Senator Ron Johnson has to think about this.
Why can't this get done?
Because Democrats want to make it easy to cheat. They're not interested in election security. That ought to tell you something. Republicans are happy to make it easy to vote, but we want to make it almost impossible to cheat. The reason 80% of Americans support voter ID is they don't want their legitimate vote canceled out by a fraudulent vote. Democrats have no problem with that, which is why they're rushing to do things like automatic registration. They doubled the number of absentee ballots, even though the Baker-Carter Commission said that was probably the greatest area of potential fraud in our elections. They embrace that. So, again, Democrats refuse to cooperate with Republicans to make our elections more secure.
So, Senator Ron Johnson is a speaker of truth. Let's just get it done. Now, I know many of you do not like Chip Roy. He's running for Attorney General now in Texas. Maybe you'll be happy he's getting out of Congress. I've had my mixed emotions with this guy. Like, he could be a real strong conservative on some things, and then he's a thorn in President Trump's side on others. He was on with my buddy Benny Johnson. This is one of the areas where he's a smart guy when it comes to the SAVE Act, Chip Roy.
We've been trying to advance the SAVE Act for a while. And if you let me level set for a minute, because I think people might get confused. 2 years ago, I worked with Cleta Mitchell, a great election lawyer, a lawyer to President Trump, expert on these topics, and Stephen Miller to draft the SAVE Act. We focused narrowly on citizenship, and that's the data, that's purging the rolls, showing ID when you register to vote, all for federal elections for purposes of guarantee that only American citizens vote in American elections. All right, so that was point one. We passed that out of the House. Chuck Schumer blocked it in the Senate, effectively, right? We had a vote, he killed it. Fast forward, we still have the SAVE Act. We've passed that again in the House this Congress. That's good. But we have been wanting to move a federal voter ID piece, right? So President Trump wanted that. I wanted that. Mike Lee, my Senate, co-author of the SAVE Act. So we added federal voter ID. And we added that component into a bill that we're now calling the Save America Act. We have that in the House. We have that in the Senate. So we think we ought to move that House bill and send that over to the Senate and then force the question. In the meantime, they've been doing great work in pushing to try to whip the votes in the Senate. There are currently 50 senators who are on board with moving the SAVE Act forward.
Wow.
Why is that important? Because that guarantees that if Leader Thune were to force the question on the floor of the Senate and demand that if Democrats want to stop it, that they have to speak in a speaking filibuster, then we could force having that fight on the floor of the Senate rather than just letting it die under the so-called 60-vote, I call it fake filibuster. Mike Lee calls it the zombie filibuster threshold.
So you think that this is actually going to finally hit the Senate floor? Will it be happening soon? Will it be happening before the 2026 election? The clock is ticking.
So, number one, Senator Thune has said he wants to bring it to a vote. But in my view, and I've said this publicly, that's not good enough, right? Because he can bring it to a vote and it die if you're going to have the threshold be 60 votes. I think where we are now is that the president has been demanding. A number of House members have said, look, we're going to make nice and we're going to move this appropriations bill this week that funds government. But we're doing it reluctantly. There's a lot of things in the bill.
All right, so he goes on to basically tell you what I'm telling you. And he mentioned Senator Thune, and I already played you Senator Thune basically telling you, oh, yeah, he'll bring it to a vote, but it doesn't matter because if you don't have the 60, so then you got to do a speaking filibuster in order to really put the Democrats on record and force it to be able to be passed. And he says, we don't have time for that. I'm telling you right now, I don't trust anybody in Washington, and I'm still at a point I don't trust Republican leadership. I trust Speaker Johnson more than I trust Speaker Thune. And I don't think Thune is a bad guy. I think he's a brainwashed uniparty swamp creature. Maybe that is a bad guy. I don't know. But I don't think he's evil like Nancy Pelosi was or Chuck Schumer is or Barack Obama is. I just think he's part of that. Let's all let's all go along to get along, and we'll put self-interest above national interest every day, and that's kind of your ruling class of career politicians. That's Thune. I don't think Speaker Johnson falls into that. I think Speaker Johnson's trying. I just think he's in a very tough position in order to get anything done. All right, folks, listen. I want to tell you about my friends over at the Wellness Company. There is a product out there called Regenerate, and this is really quite amazing. If you are working out and you have problems with stiffness and joint pain, this Regenerate is fabulous. It is peptide-based. If you're older and you play golf and your joints and muscles are hurting, Regenerate is a peptide-based product. You drop it in some water, you pound it down, and guess what? You start feeling better like never before. Again, these peptides are the way to go. It's an unbelievable product. twc.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off. That BPC 157 peptide is what forces cellular growth. You see cartilage start growing again. You see all kinds of amazing things happen with the body with this BPC 157, which is in Regenerate. So again, twc.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT, and I promise you, you're going to love it. And then, of course, don't forget the medical kits. If you don't have one of these prescription medications you need, including ivermectin in here, get one. twc.health/grant. Use that promo code GRANT for 10% off. All right. Did you guys see this hearing? This hearing was unbelievable about Warner Brothers and Netflix. Netflix is trying to buy Warner Brothers for $8.2 billion. Now, I want you to think about this. This is going to create a super woke production monster, okay? The amount of woke programming to come out of this combined entity of Warner Brothers and Netflix is going to leave us shaking our heads. Now, should the United States government step in and block the merger? We have to think about competition, subscriber fees. Does it compete with YouTube? Is there other competition out there? This is what senators are raising. But beyond that, I really want you to think about what Warner Brothers and Netflix are doing. Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley put these guys on notice yesterday. I want to go through some of the testimony because I thought it was really eye-opening and entertaining, quite frankly. So let's start with Ted Cruz.
Are we right now on stolen land?
I have no idea the history of this land, of this where we're sitting today.
Nor do I, Senator.
All right, hold on. I want to make sure you heard it. Cruz asks, are we on stolen land? This is after Billie Eilish at the Grammys says, oh, we're on stolen land. I live in a $14 million house. I'm not giving it to an Indian in Oklahoma, but we're on stolen land. Ah. You're not on stolen land at all. So Cruz asked the question.
Are we right now on stolen land?
I have no idea the history of this land, of this where we're sitting today.
Nor do I, Senator.
So that speaks volumes that neither of you are willing to say, hell no, we're not on stolen land. And I will say at the Grammys, when you see an entertainer say, nobody is illegal while we're on stolen land, and then you see entertainers leap to their feet clapping so excitedly at the notion that America's fundamentally illegitimate, it starts to convey that the entertainment world is deeply corrupt. And I will point out that same singer who says no one is illegal on stolen land promptly went back to her $14 million mansion, and somehow that stolen land she wasn't concerned about, just the United States of America. Look, Netflix has long been a left-wing company. Your founder, Reed Hastings, is one of the biggest Democrat donors in the country. including giving millions recently to the massive gerrymander in California, making it one of the most gerrymandered states in the union, because your founder desperately wants a Democrat House of Representatives. Susan Rice from the Obama White House is on your board of directors. You guys gave $50 million to the Obamas, as far as I can tell, to produce no discernible content whatsoever. How would you tell a Texan sitting at home to feel comfortable? CNN is already a dumpster fire. There's nothing resembling objectivity. There's nothing resembling journalism anymore. How are people at home, how should they feel even remotely confident that if this merger happens, the combined entity would not simply be a propaganda outlet pushing one particular political view with much greater market power than you have now?
Well, sir, we would fail. We would fail pushing a political view or propaganda. We deliver entertainment to consumers.
All right. I'm going to pause it there. We're going to come back to this. Because what he's about to say is, in many respects, very true. It's what free markets are about. But the problem is what they're planning to do is merge and give you less choice. So if they want to flood you with woke propaganda on HBO Max and Netflix and there's no competition, well, then you're going to get overrun by it. Now, you can turn it off, and I would recommend you do. If you have children, I would not be allowing them to watch Netflix.
It's not the park. It's me. I'm trans, Norma. And everyone at school knows, and everyone at home knows. And being here, it's like a whole new place.
This is Netflix programming. I mean, what world or planet are we on now, Earth, that we're teaching kids about trans and that it's okay to pretend you're another sex?
I can just be Barney, and I can choose if and when I tell people. I've never been happier. And that's saying something when I spent today chased by terrifying zombie mascots. Pugsley reminded me how important it is to live your life without apology. So I think I gotta give living here a shot. Don't you?
You don't need my permission. I just wouldn't want Courtney as a roommate.
I would offer up live your life without apology 100%. Be unapologetic and bold. But that's not telling kids to pretend they're something they're not. You also have to teach reality in the world. And chopping off your boobs has devastating consequences. Devastating. And so I'm gonna play more of this because I want you to hear what the CEO of Netflix says, his answer to Ted Cruz's question.
Our consumers see our business pretty much the way they see America. About 40% conservative, about 40% liberal, about 20% don't know. And when they turn on TV, they're tuned in to be entertained. And if we fail to entertain them by trying to promote propaganda or something, anything other than entertainment, we fail.
Mr. Campbell, same question to you.
We see the world very similar.
This is going to now the Warner Brothers CEO to ask the same question. Now, it is true if you don't entertain, you're going to fail 100%. People will just turn it off. And that's exactly what's happening to shows on HBO Max. John Oliver, CNN. They mentioned CNN, a Warner Brother property. CNN has the lowest ratings ever. It's failing to entertain and inform.
We have a very broad range of content across not only HBO Max, but all of our platforms that we need to appeal to all audiences. Our content ranges from Hard Knocks from the NFL to shows like Deadliest Catch and Gold Rush. It's a very broad collection of programming that represents broad interests across America.
You have a wide range of programming on HBO. Name one program that is designed to appeal to conservatives.
We don't design our programming to appeal to
I can think of a lot that are designed to go to liberals. Name one.
None of our shows are designed to go to any political group. They're designed to appeal to...
Really, John Oliver's not designed to appeal to a certain group?
It's a program that for which there's...
You just said none of your program is... Look, let me ask you, do you think CNN is fair and balanced?
I do believe CNN is a fair.
So when CNN showed riots and fires behind them, and you put a chyron, mostly peaceful but fiery protest, was that journalism?
Sir, I'm not involved with CNN, and in fact, they're not part of this transaction, but they have an independent editorial board, they have independent news gathering. We don't direct.
They have no independence other than hating Donald Trump, which is why their viewership numbers have plummeted, because they don't actually report news. They instead engage in very biased propaganda. And I will say the truest words you said a minute ago is when you said, with respect to Mr. Sarandos, well, he and I see the world in very much the same way. That is exactly the problem, that in the world of journalism, it should not be propaganda. In the world of entertainment, there is a reason why entertainers who are even slightly right of center get blackballed in Hollywood, writers get blackballed in Hollywood, actors get blackballed in Hollywood.
Thank you, Senator Ted Cruz. Now, for the CEO of Warner Brothers, he comes off ridiculous when he says, no, I think CNN is not biased. Just turn it on, man. A reasonable person can tell you that CNN is biased. That would be like asking the CEO of Real America's Voice, where I work, and he's a great guy, Rob Sigg, is Real America's Voice biased? I would imagine he would say yes. We are a MAGA TV network. We are an America First TV network. We're unapologetic about it. Do we always try to tell the truth? 100%. Are we biased in the fact that we don't always tell you what the Democrats want us to tell you? Do we give equal time to Democrats? No. Does that make us biased? Maybe if we're a journalism outfit. But my show on Real America's Voice, this podcast, this isn't journalism. Don't email me and say, and I get this all the time, and I'm grateful because I know you mean well. Don't email me and say, oh, Grant, you're the best journalist out there. You speak the truth. You're a great journalist. I, folks, am not a journalist. I was a journalist at one time. You maybe could make an argument that I'm an investigator, but I am not a fair and balanced journalist. I don't have an obligation to tell you both sides of the story. I am only going to tell you the side of the story that I want to tell you. Now, I do my best to always tell you what I believe is the truth. I told you I'm right 95% of the time. 5% of the time I may get it wrong. But I believe I was right when I got it wrong. Okay? And I apologize for the 5%. You can't be right all the time. But I'm not here to give equal time, equal platforms. And that's no. Which means I'm not a journalist. I was a journalist at one point in my life. I worked for local NBC stations, and I did my best to tell it down the middle and let you decide. Put an entertaining story on TV, but ultimately you were going to decide how you should be feeling. And even then, I could probably admit that I was somewhat biased. And I let my bias in my reporting come out, not in overt pushing of propaganda, right-leaning, but in the stories that I chose. I chose stories no other reporter was choosing. I chose stories to focus on private enterprise, doing it better than government. I remember going into a housing project in the Bronx, and that housing project, I believe, was filmed in New Jack City, if you remember that movie, and it was ugly, it was gross, it smelled bad, it looked bad, it was riddled with crime. Private company goes in, takes over this housing project that was run by the government, gives people a sense of ownership. They each get a little garden, a plot of land they can grow vegetables in. They made rules that if you're on the playground and there's a drug dealer caught on the playground, the whole playground gets shut down, something the city would never do. They made tenants sign leases, and if you get caught with drugs in your apartment, you're instantly evicted. They made them sign the leases to this. And what happened to this place? This place grew into the Emerald City of the South Bronx. It was an oasis in a horrible, nasty neighborhood because people started to take ownership in this place. It was run better by private enterprise. I did a story on that. We don't have any reporters and media taking looks like that. But the bottom line is the Warner Brothers CEO just needs to admit, you know what? We have our biases. And we relate to a crowd, and part of the business model is that we're going to relate to that crowd. And we think that if people hate us so much, they're going to watch. And if people love us so much, they're going to watch. And that's a legitimate business model. In fact, I remember the movie Private Parts about Howard Stern. And the program director comes in and says, you know how much the average Howard Stern lover listens to him on the radio? And I say, how long? 22 minutes. But here's what's amazing. The average Howard Stern hater listens to him for an hour and 20 minutes. It's a business model. The CEO was not honest about the business model. There is no programming on HBO Max that appeals to conservatives. And he should have said, John Oliver, yes, is meant to appeal to one segment of the population. So, you know, this is the interesting deal about all of this. All right, so let me play for you. Here, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play a little bit of Josh Hawley because he was great. But before I do that, I want to tell you about my friends over at VRA Insider. If you guys want to crush the market, 35% average returns over the last 3 years. Last year was 50%. 2024 was 50% returns on their portfolio. Last year was 35%. Unbelievable. VRA Insider is a newsletter every morning. They hold 10 positions. They call them their 10 baggers. And they're a buy and hold. You may sell them every couple of weeks. You may sell them every few months. You may hold them for the whole year. It's not a day trading program. But they are very bullish on the market right now and very bullish on some certain stocks. And if you want to have these types of returns, go to VRAinsider.com. Right now they're offering a 2-week trial. I've signed up with them, and I've taken some of my portfolio, and I'm now following them, and I'm doing great. VRAinsider.com. That's VRAinsider.com. On Friday, you'll see a podcast with the CEO, Kip, who is great, so knowledgeable. You see him on Fox Business all the time. VRAinsider.com. He has called so many moves, and he says, we're now coming into the greatest bull market we've ever seen. But you got to know exactly which stocks to get on board with. VRAinsider.com. That's VRAinsider.com. 2-week trial. You have nothing to lose. Try it. And then email me and tell me I'm wrong. It's not going to be one of the 5%, I promise you. All right. Thanks to them. All right. So Josh Hawley had his opportunity to approach these guys.
Why is it that so much of Netflix content for children promotes a transgender ideology? Almost half of your content for children, I'm talking about minor children now, I'm not talking about teenagers, minor children, promotes a transgender ideology agenda. I was just looking at the data here from your various series. And what concerns me is just 2 days ago, a jury in New York awarded a former transitioner $2 million because she said that her psychologists and others pressured her into, they pushed on her an ideology that proved to be extremely detrimental. I'm sure you know that in the UK, the National Health Service in the UK has said that they're not going to perform transgender surgeries or any longer so-called gender-affirming care for minors, including in counseling, because it is so incredibly detrimental. Our own HHS has come forward with similar findings this past year, yet if you turn on Netflix, you'll find that an enormous amount, and I say this as a parent with 3 young children, an enormous amount of your children's programming has this ideology and agenda in it. Is this an advocacy position for Netflix? Is this an ideological commitment you have? I mean, why is this?
Senator Hawley, Netflix has no political agenda of any kind. I would tell you that.
Well, then why is your children's program so full of this highly sexualized, highly controversial agenda?
Hold on, Senator Hawley. You mean highly controversial material like this?
Thing that we know about you. You love to get
get up and dance. How about you break out those moves for your two biggest fans?
You can't just have a gay couple with kids. You got to have a gay couple that's a biracial couple, that's black and white. I mean, you got to really go over the top with the gay dads.
If you're not sure what to choose, think about all the things you like to do. Just be you.
Just be me?
Yep. When you're trying to decide, think about all the things you like to do. Just be you.
Just be me.
Unbelievable. So Josh Hawley's spot on, and they'll deny it, but I've got even more examples.
I don't understand it. It seems strange to me.
Respectfully, sir, it's because it's inaccurate. We have millions of hours of children's programming.
You're saying it's not there. You don't have trans. You don't feature trans characters, trans storylines, trans themes. It's not in your programming.
I'm saying we feature a wide variety of stories and programs to meet a wide variety of people's tastes.
Why is almost half of it? Why does almost half of your children's program feature this highly controversial, highly sexualized material? That just seems strange to me. It can't possibly be a reflection of the population.
Senator Hawley, I don't have any idea where that number would come from or what that would be. I don't believe that's been your personal experience, but I can't speak to that.
Well, what do you mean you don't think it's been my personal experience? You don't think that I monitor what my children watch on your... Here's what I tell you what my personal experience is since you bring it up. My personal experience is that my 3 children, I can't let them watch anything they want on Netflix. I can't let them watch anything on Netflix unless I preview it, because I don't have confidence in what's on your platform. I don't know what they're going to encounter, and I tell you what, I don't want my kids being pushed an agenda about their sexuality or gender identity.
Wait a Senator Hawley. What about their religion? Can they be pushed as far as just crap on Christianity? You get the idea. So it sounds all cute until you realize what the ultimate goal is. It's to poke holes in the Bible. It's to poke holes in the story of Jesus and how he was born, and the 3 wise men will turn them into women. That brings in the trans idea. And all of it is designed to make it just kind of a joke. They're sly the way they do it because they'll claim it's just humor and, it's innocent fun, but it's not innocent at all. It's about literally disparaging the Bible and putting questions in your kids' heads. This is why Josh Hawley doesn't want his kids watching Netflix.
When I have not had the opportunity first to discuss it with them and to form them in that. And I, frankly, on behalf of parents around the country, it offends me that Netflix is pushing this content at parents in what seems to be a very coordinated, thought through, planned out agenda in a way that, frankly, I think undermines parents, certainly undermines me and my wife. We have to watch every show beforehand before we can let our kids watch it. Now, I don't know. That seems pretty concerning to me. I know you make a gob of money on it, and maybe that's the answer. But it just seems to me that it's a disservice to the parents of this country, particularly given what's happening with our youth on this subject.
So, Senator, if I may answer, like I said, we have millions of hours of content on Netflix at any given time. We have state-of-the-art tools for you to manage those choices for your children and to block any title that you might be offended by for any reason. So we are parents at Netflix as well. We share all your concerns about raising kids and also the ability to raise them as you see fit in your household and anyone else's household as well.
My concern is that you don't share my values or those of many other American parents, and you want the United States government to allow you to become one of the largest, if not the largest, streaming monopolist in the world. I think we ought to be concerned about what content you're promoting.
Amen to that. Now, again, I'm all about entities should be allowed to put almost anything they want up. I am a free speech guy, and I believe entertainment goes into free speech, but I'm also about giving parents tools to block it. Parents need to take an active role in what their kids are watching. You can't rely on government to protect your kids. You can't rely on Netflix to protect your kids. Only you can protect your kids. And in the end, I don't really like government putting any boundaries on anything when it comes to this stuff. Not video games, not anything. It's the parent's job. And Parents' job is a rough job. I'm a parent. I didn't do such a great job of it. Well, I shouldn't say that. I feel like I did a really good job. My kid is a great kid. He's well-grounded. But man, oh man, I make some serious mistakes along the way. Right? Like, you're not perfect. Yes, what could you have done differently? And you learn. But I'm always well-intentioned, that's for sure. But you got to be actively engaged. If you're not actively engaged, do not depend on government. So I don't want government putting guardrails on Netflix and this, but I may say block the merger. If there's no other outlets for content, we create this super monster of wokeness. That's scary. All right, before I let you go, just a little fun President Trump has with the media. Again, he is so great taking down, what's her name, Caitlin Collins, who used to work for the Daily Caller, by the way, which tells me she's a total phony. So she was a conservative then, now she's a wild radical leftist now. Who was she faking for? Is she faking for both? But Trump summed it up here.
I think it's time now for the country to maybe get onto something else.
But what would you say to people who feel like they haven't gotten justice, Mr. President?
Something that people care about. Yeah, what did you say?
What would you say to the survivors who feel like they haven't gotten justice?
You are the worst reporter. No wonder CNN has no ratings because of people like you. You know, she's a young woman. I don't think I've ever seen you smile. I've known you for 10 years. I don't think I've ever seen a smile on your face.
I'm asking you about survivors.
You know why? You know why you're not smiling? Because you know you're not telling the truth. And you're a very dishonest organization, and they should be ashamed of you.
I love him. I really, really love this man. I'm telling you, he is so great. And Caitlin Collins doesn't smile, ever. What do they call it? Resting bitch face? That's what she has. Like, imagine being her boyfriend or husband, and that comes home to you every night. That's really what President Trump is saying there. Like, ugh. You just are an unhappy, awful person. And I don't want to be around you. That's what he's telling her. Oh, I'm sure her boyfriend was like, yes, Mr. President, you nailed it. I'm sure he's a radical leftist too, but this is probably the one thing he agrees with him on. Oh, man. All right, folks. That's going to do it for us. Don't forget my course, The Maverick Mindset. Go to themavericksystem.com, themavericksystem.com. Learn how to be an alpha. Learn how to get respect. Learn how to attract respect to you. You want a new job. You want to buy a business. You need a new girlfriend. You need confidence. The Maverick System is fabulous. Super easy. It's not that long. Go there. Try it out, especially if you've got kids, teenagers, I would say, that you want to have them learn about being bold and unapologetic in a respectful way. The Maverick System is for you. TheMavericksystem.com, TheMavericksystem.com. All right, I'll see all of you on the Real America's Voice show tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Can't wait for that. Stinchfield's Army rolls because of you. We will see you then. Thanks for watching.